more a fact that it's become official that Australia is in the first recession for 28 years.
Yeah, and this is only 2/3 of the way through, Peter, really. I mean, essentially you've got a 0.3% contraction in the March quarter. Then we had the shutdowns in this quarter. They're expecting a 6 to 7% contraction. And then, of course, the September quarter with the Victorian lockdown, you will see another contraction. You've got to bear in mind too that basically $200 billion of stimulus from the RBA or the federal government have gone into this. So imagine how bad it would be without that, without JobKeeper, etc. A grim day, but really nothing surprising. We know we're in a recession. The aim's been to keep us out of depression, really.
Yeah, well, and that was the question I was just about to ask you. You know, at what point do the people that you're talking to behind the scenes, do they start becoming worried about that?
Well, I don't think they are, but I think one big thing to worry about is the debt going forward and, you know, how it'll take a generation to pay it off, because I don't think JobKeeper will be coming off before the next federal election. I think that will be late next year. And, you know, by then, a fair bit of money, extra tens of billions, will have been spent. If there's any more shutdowns or lockdowns, if there's any more outbreaks, you'll need even more money. It's really about how much money the federal government wants to spend and whether or not that's propping up state premiers' decisions to keep their state borders closed, which isn't helping as well. The problem here is the cliff. Do we keep kicking the can down the road, or do we accept this higher unemployment rate at some point? But then again, on the other side, do you want to prevent a depression? So, I mean, house prices in Sydney, for example, haven't even moved yet, and yet you've got so many more people unemployed. So at some stage, there's got to be a proper correction.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I mean, what Tony Abbott was saying this morning has got a lot to do with this argument. I've got a clip to play for you at the moment, Andrew. This is a bit of Tony Abbott overnight at this British think tank.
For more than 6 months now in Victoria, under disaster and emergency declarations, homes can be entered, people can be detained, and the ordinary law of the land suspended. And the Premier now wants to extend this health dictatorship for at least another 6 months.
Yeah, so he's called it a health dictatorship. That's what's going on in Victoria. There's a whole lot of comments that have causing quite a stir this morning. Andrew, first of all, what did you make of that speech?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, shutdowns and lockdowns do work and they help your economy eventually. I've thought one of the more draconian things I don't like with all these shutdowns, Peter, is not being able to go to a friend's house, particularly for single people in a lockdown situation. If you go and visit one or two other friends, or your kids go and have a play date, that can kind of keep you sane. And I don't believe that's going to lead to a big spread of the coronavirus. So I know what the authorities have been trying to do this year to stop big house parties where it really spreads, and there's been evidence of that. I think that's one thing that they could look at. The reason they don't is they're trying to stop the spread as much as they can, and it has no positive economic impact, they think. But that's one thing where he, you know, strikes a chord with me, I think.
Yeah, and Tim Wilson had an interesting speech this week too, saying, you know, basically people for the most part are doing what they can with all the restrictions that are in restaurants by registering. If you can work from home, do it. That's got to be the way forward to be able to live with it. And this is all part of the Prime Minister's push to have, you know, the borders open by Christmas. People have got to get their holiday plans in place. But, I mean, do you see that happening? Is probably more of a chance with Victoria and New South Wales doing that rather than Queensland and WA.
I think Queensland it could happen. I think WA's a bit grimmer chance because there are elections next March. But yes, he's very clearly emphasising Christmas. He did so in question time yesterday. The reason for that is even though in Queensland and WA there's broad support for border closures, there's a belief that so many people have family in other states that community sentiment will probably shift around Christmas on this, especially if coronavirus numbers are low. So I think the Prime Minister's set himself that target. He knows it's hard to get the states over the line on this with state elections coming up in Queensland and WA. But if he plays the Christmas card, that's where community sentiment might shift and we might see some openings, certainly with Queensland. I mean, look, they got the grand final going up there apparently. Are they not going to let anyone in to go and see it? I think it's a state election date, which is interesting too. And the theory is that Anastasia Palaszczuk will eventually open the borders after the state election. Well, that AFL grand final would be nice if people from other states could attend, wouldn't it?
I wonder how she sells that, though, because if she's tough on the borders right up until the election, surely she would probably have to remain tough for at least a little while after that, don't you think?
Yeah, for a little while,
Yeah.
until Christmas.
Yeah.
Excuse my cynicism. I reckon that's what will happen.
Yeah.
But we were talking off air about how that makes it really hard for people to make plans, and I think we've got that problem. We certainly had it in July. If you say 2 weeks before Christmas, now it's open, it's too late for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's too late, and they run the risk of losing their money from whatever place they've booked. Just finally, how do you feel about the Gabba hosting the final?
Oh, mate, it's pretty ridiculous, isn't it? I mean,
Well, hang on,
they're
why
trying
is
to
it
steal
ridiculous?
a march on rugby league up there.
Well, Queensland saved the day, haven't they? They've saved the day when it comes to the AFL anyway.
Well, yeah. I mean, they've got a smaller stadium than 3 other states. I thought it was all about a big show, I don't know.
Yeah, anyway.
Good luck to them.